Oh, I thought that was going to be one of your goofy, smart-ass comments. I guess not.
I never, ever have those. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, moving on to the topic of the day.
You're disappointed. I didn't have anything.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 366 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Garden. Good afternoon, Donna.
Hello, David.
How you been?
You know, just running on that hamster wheel. They keep telling me if I keep going, I'll eventually find the end. I'm not seeing it. I think I'm being tricked.
You think? I don't know. It's fun throwing you a little bit of cheese down every so often and watch you scramble. Speaking of which, OCR has been busy on the hamster wheel, and we'll talk about that more today. But wow.
Yeah.
I think it was Thursday or Friday. I don't remember which. I'm sitting there working, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I know what we're talking about Monday.
Well, you know, they done one the day before that I was already looking at, thinking we could make a whole episode about it. And then, bam! Very next day, smack, smack, smack.
Yeah. So we got 12 cases that dropped last week from OCR.
Yeah, it was seeming like it was kind of not going to be a very, not doing a lot of cases, or it was going to be all, packed at, because, I track this stuff, David.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And keep up with this stuff, David.
I know.
And they have now jumped ahead with these 11, and then they had the day with 5. So they went from, hey, we haven't done very much enforcement to, hey, we're beating out some of the previous years. Because I always look at not the dollar amounts, but the number of enforcement actions, which is hysterical when I tell people the statistical likelihood of you actually being fined anything by OCR is very small.
Mm-hmm.
People don't believe me. I have a chart. I keep it up to date at any time.
But does that help people to ignore what they should be doing? Because they're like, chances of it happening is low. I'm just going to ignore it.
What I tell them is that's not what you should worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean, eventually it will be a thing that you should worry about. Actually, a fine, penalty, corrective action plan. Yes, worry about it. Bottom line is, you don't ever want to get there, because to get there, it has to be really bad.
Yeah.
Except under these right of privacy. Because the year where we had the highest number, and you can call dollar amounts and all that stuff all you want, but the highest number of resolution agreements / civil money penalty actions was in 2020 when they had 19.
Yep. Not a whole lot.
That's the highest ever in 1 year, 19 cases. Then we had 14 last year. Now we're up to 16 this year. That happened quick. Boom, bada bang.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure, if you're only worried about the compliance piece of it, you are looking at the wrong thing, because compliance ain't going to save you.
Well, and the other thing is, it ain't about the money either. Because these 16 cases, the vast majority of them have these corrective action plans. That's what you should worry about.
Yeah.
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 So the couple of years of somebody being all up in your business, which is a big deal when we start talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would much rather have you up in my business helping me with my program than have OCR up in my business helping me with my program.
So before we get into that, speaking of OCR, one of the investigators is joining us in Louisville to answer your questions about how an investigation works and what kind of things would they look for.
Yeah.
There's an
This is the
investigation.
session where you ask all the hypotheticals, like, I know somebody.
If this were to happen, not to me or anyone closely, but they're good though. They start the session with, I've got plenty of work. Nothing you tell me will turn into an event.
Yeah.
In fact, I won't even know who you are on purpose.
Maybe we'll like make the lights on the stage really bright and then make the microphone change the person's voice.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we do that.
But no, it's funny because you and I have done this with the OCR investigators before, and it always takes a little bit of time for people to kind of get warmed up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, well, what about this? And what about that?
Yeah.
Or can I talk to you later just over in the corner and not tell you who I am?
I know. But think about it. How often do you have an opportunity to speak to somebody who's actually doing the OCR investigations and ask questions? Because, a lot of us don't believe it. You have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Show me. But anyway, the Privacy and Security Boot Camp, you can find more information at priceatbootcamp.com. It's going to be September 12th through the 15th. It'll be 3.5 days of total awesomeness. We're going to be covering, we're doing themed learning days. So we're going to have a day for supply chain risk management. We're going to have a day for documentation and training programs and policies and procedures. Because if you can't prove it, it didn't happen.
Yep.
We're going to have a day for risky business, so identifying and managing your risk. And then lastly, and not least, Murphy's Law Day, because it's all going to go to crap at some point.
That's right. And we've got a really high-end dude coming in doing the tabletop exercise for us on that day. So
I'm looking forward to that one myself.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Yep.
So there you have it. Go to
priceatbootcamp.com to learn more. And make sure when you visit, you have a credit card out. Make it easy.
That's right. Go ahead, sign up, book your rooms. Rooms are running low. And we did extend out after people pointed out somewhat rudely that I had not calculated dates very well. No, it was actually people on my own team, people who know me, who are comfortable in going, you screwed up. Anyway, I think we've extended it out to August, somewhere in August, where it's properly like a month before, is what I was told.
Yeah.
Okay.
13th, 12th, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the 13th. I probably picked that. It's my birthday. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through my birthday.
Okay. There you have it. David's birthday.
But to quote Donna, this is not some schmoozy conference.
That's right. This ain't your mama's Price-Ec boot camp.
That's right. So check that out. And we'll hope to see you there. It's going to be fun.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Anything else before we get into the next segment?
All the normal stuff. Share us out. Give us a review. And thanks to our donors.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, ready for the HIPAA?
Say what? Yeah.
Ah, yes. So, one thing that people often miss is that OCR, HIPAA, and all that, it's got this phraseology with it that sometimes trips people up. And one such phraseology is in 164.306A2. If you've been through any of our boot camps, you know exactly where that is. But it says to protect against, and I quote, any reasonably anticipated threats or hazards to the security or integrity of such information. So, what is reasonably anticipated threats? Well, it's anything you hear about on this show.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is it reasonable for me to expect you to know this is a threat? Is it reasonable, David?
I would say that anything that the government puts out as a public notice, as it's a threat happening and you should be aware of it, it would be hard for anybody to say it's not reasonable for me to have known to anticipate this threat or hazard. Therefore, you should know there are some things happening that you should pay attention to.
Yes. And two very interesting in the last couple of weeks. One from CISA, and it was, one of those joint ones, FBI, Treasury, CISA, DA. I mean, like, everybody gets together.
Mm-hmm. Even Peter was in that one, I think.
And they published an alert that North Korean state-sponsored cyber actors use Maui ransomware to target the healthcare and public health sector. Now, granted, this has been going on since I think they started seeing beginnings of it in May 2021. And it was happening, but now they're bringing it out and saying everybody should pay attention. North Korea is going after healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people don't, that nation state thing, but North Korea, and this gets back to why don't they get a real job? It is their job. They are being paid by the government of North Korea to attack you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is their job. And generally, not only do they work for the government, they're probably in the military.
Yeah. And this, I tell my clients all the time, we are in a war. Now, you forget all the stuff about, bombs dropping and all that. We are in a cyber war all the time. And the battlefield is the internet. So you can't get away from it. So
it could get bombed at any time.
Yeah, and you got to think that way. It's amazing that people still today connect to the internet with this thinking that it's just a fun and happy place.
Mm-hmm. Look at all the stuff I can do.
It's so amazing.
Yeah, you have no idea what other people can do to you.
I know.
But I mean, it is something that everyone needs to, it's our new thing where we're saying everybody's on the cybersecurity team.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an IT problem. It is an everybody problem. And until everybody's doing it better, they're going to keep being exceptionally successful.
Oh, yeah.
So, the state-sponsored ones on North Korea, and by the way, you and I have been saying we've been in a cyber war for years.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody listened to us. We should go back and try to find the first time we said cyber war. But the North Korea, we got a link to it. It gives you indicators of compromise. Boom, that came out around 4th of July weekend. Okay? Should be paying attention to these things whenever they're published.
Mm-hmm.
That would make it reasonable for you to know because it's been published and alerted. But here's the other one that I saw last week. Microsoft says North Korean hackers are targeting SMBs, as in small and medium businesses, with the Holy Ghost, or H0L. It's got to be Holy Ghost is the way they're saying it, ransomware, according to Microsoft. So, if you're an SMB or you're in healthcare, North Korea is after you. And if you're an SMB in healthcare, here, there's a double whammy coming at you from North Korea.
Yep. That's an interesting name because it's not just, Holy Ghost ransomware, but that's the name of the hacking group. Holy Ghost.
It's just, I don't know, but.
So, if you're a church going folk, if somebody tells you in business that you got the Holy Ghost, that might not be a good thing. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. You don't want to be seeing that on your computers.
No, you don't.
And so please do not click a link.
Don't click on it. Look at this video of somebody that got the Holy Ghost. It might not be what you're thinking.
So anyway, with these two things coming out and urging us to pay attention to this, one must remember that in legal terms, it could be that is a reasonably anticipated threat.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to hear that argument. But the bottom line is we want you to always be aware of these things. That's why we bring it up. But we bring it up because it's part of HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
Although we do need to go help me with everything. Working on names. So, that covers our HIPAA. Say what?
Yeah, good job.
Thank you. I worked on it.
You have to kind of throw yourself up onto your toes, you know.
Had to squeak.
All right, now for our 405D tip of the week.
Or you could say 405D tip of the week.
I can't do that, man. I'm telling you. It's just.
Tip. Okay. It's a brand new 405D awareness product that was just released. Among other awareness products, which we encourage you to go to the website and see. We have a link to the website, and you can look at the awareness products that are published.
Mm-hmm.
But it is how to implement patching, and they have 3 different how-to resources. Guess what each one is for?
Small, medium, and large.
There you go.
It's just like ordering French fries.
That's right. So all you SMBs, this is one of the French fries, SMBs out there, you got your smalls and your mediums patching, which I would highly recommend you do, considering that North Korea is after you.
Mm-hmm.
And they use things that have already been patched. So go to
405d.hhs.gov.
You did it. Yeah, tricky.
See, I have to read her mind, y'all. Do y'all notice that? Like, I just have to be ready all the time.
Yeah, right.
So
we both know that you've messed that up several times. So
I know,
it's now a challenge.
I do it for a reason. There's always a method to my madness. Even a mistake is not a mistake.
Okay. All the times you messed it up, and now you don't. Okay, gotcha. Moving along.
So, but before we dive away from that, can you dive away from something? I guess you can.
Swim away? I don't know.
I was reading an article over the weekend. They were talking about security awareness training, and the question was, how often should you do it? And so they did some research on that. Like, where's the point at which it's not working very well anymore? And the magic number, come to find out, where it starts dropping off drastically is training every 4 months. If you're not training at least every 4 months, it's a drastic decrease. I'm not saying you should only train every 4 months. I'm just saying that's where they noticed a huge drop off in people retaining the information and doing it. So if you're only doing it once a year before your annual training, you're in bad shape. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I'm not one to promote the minimum. So I wouldn't go, every 4 months. I'll do 3, 2, 1 even. I like 1 myself. But certainly for those of you who are doing your annual training every year, your annual security awareness training, you might as well not even do it. I mean, that's basically what the article said. The article said there's so little retention of the information when you do it annually that it's almost worthless.
Which is why we say you do a couple of big training events, 2 or 3, maybe even quarterly. But then what you want to do is when you're having discussions, bring it up and ask the questions. Does this have a privacy or security impact? Or, hey, did you guys see in the news such and such happened? We got to remember not to click on things. Mm-hmm. That's it. It keeps it front of mind. That's what your intent is.
Yep.
So there you go. I agree. 3 or 4 times, big training, but I think it's more valuable to have the constant mentions within the context of your normal day-to-day.
Yep. I did learn a new acronym too. You ever heard of the SLAM method for looking at indicators of compromise in an email?
No. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So SLAM. So you got the subject. So look at the subject matter of the email. Then you've got links. So hover over your links and things like that. A is for the address. Who's it addressed to? Who's it addressed from? And then M, the message. Look at the body of the message. Does anything look weird in there? Does it sound like it's coming from that person? Is it in their tone of voice, so to speak, and all that? So that's how you can remember it. SLAM.
Oh, I thought that was going to be one of your goofy, smart-ass comments. That's not.
I never, ever have those. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, moving on to the topic of the day.
You're disappointed I didn't have anything.
No, I'm not disappointed. I was just prepared for that instead of something that was slam. Slam is good.
Slam-a-lama ding dong. That's a completely different program. The Slam-a-lama ding dong program.
Hey, now, don't take that away from the sportscasters. Who was it did that? Cardinals, I think. Slam-a-lama ding dong.
I don't know.
All right.
So, mic drop from OCR. We talked about it in the beginning, so let's dive in. 11 patient. 12
total. Day one, I'm all excited because we got a new one to review. And then, bam, 11 patient access ones.
All right. Take us down the road.
Well, I'm going to do the Oklahoma State University one first, since we got it first. It's a security one, and it was big dollar one. It was $875,000 settlement with a 2-year corrective action plan, CAP as we call it. They did get attention with that one. And somebody said in the forums on the Cardin Club, I read it. It's kind of sad, but not unexpected. I concur because, and this is one of those where, you always say I'd like to be a fly on the wall to see that conversation, but I don't think I would want to be a fly on the wall to see the moment this knowledge hit, right? Because they report, and this one goes back, the original report is January 5th, 2018. So again, we point out how far back these ones can go, and the investigation goes on and on and on. And there are still some out there that are older than 2 or 3 years. Trust me, I know. But they submitted a breach report saying, quote, an unauthorized third party gained access to a web server that contained ePHI. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They're saying there was malware installed, quote, on a web server. Let's try to get the point across that it was a web server that resulted in the disclosure of 279,865 individuals. Ouch. And it did have policy numbers, provider name, dates of service, date of birth, their address, and treatment information. It was all in there. So I first say, wow, $875,000 for a web server breach. That there's got to be more to the story, one would think. And guess what?
There was more to the story.
There was more. Why, I'm like, why are they bringing down the hammer? Were these people? No, here's why they're bringing down the hammer. Because this is that moment where there is no way I would want to be a fly on the wall. They initially reported that the breach occurred on November 7th, 2017, and they were notifying on January 5th. We're all good. Thumbs up. But later, they had discovered that the ePHI was first impermissibly disclosed on March 9th, 2016. So not November 2017, but March 2016.
Wow.
And in that update, they say, we weren't aware there was PHI on that server.
How many times we heard that one?
Yeah. So, basically, and I worry about this happening all the time. When we go in and we're starting on something, you can imagine, okay, we're doing the right thing. We got everything. And then you say, during the investigation, somebody somewhere goes, well, that happened before, and we said there was nothing to report. That moment, you see somebody throwing up in a trash can somewhere by their desk, or they just get up and walk out, or bang their head on the desk, or reach in the drawer and pull out a bottle. I don't know what, but it would not have been a pretty sight.
Mm-mm.
I can't imagine what you and I would have been like. Well, we would have been like, wow, y'all are screwed. I'm out of here. No, we wouldn't. We would stay around and try to help. But here's the thing, is that it's a web server, meaning it's exposed. And we've talked about the importance of making sure you secure websites.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've talked about it a lot, but I think we've done a couple episodes on specifically securing websites.
Yep.
And that assumption. And clearly they've assumed two things. One is security on the website doesn't matter on the web server. And two, there's no PHI on there. And we know both are wrong assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, in a lot of environments, you just almost have to say, assume PHI is everywhere. Just treat it as such.
That's what I always say when somebody says, well, there's no PHI on there. And I was like, you're going to have to prove it. Are you sure? Have you looked? Going to have to prove it.
And if it's not on there today, can you prove it a year from now that it's still not on there?
Yeah, you don't, yeah. It's another reason that we say you shouldn't just look for PHI. You should look for all your valuable information assets and know where they are. If you're going to do the program for everything. So what really should have been not too bad became very, very bad because 18 months, more than that probably, between March 2016 to November 2017, we knew there was a vulnerability. We knew there was PHI on there, or at least somebody knew. Clearly somebody did, because at some point somebody made the decision that it was no big deal when it happened before and did nothing to mitigate it or prevent it from happening again in the future, including, I don't know, a risk analysis that pointed it out. So, yeah, that's what happened. Had they just handled the 2016 case the same way they were handling it in 2018, which tells me different people. Right?
Yep.
Because otherwise, I mean, it just makes sense. It's more than likely different people now involved that actually understand what's required instead of some IT guy going, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Nuke and pave.
Why is it got to be IT guy?
Because that's usually who they blame. You know I'm right. There's always, well, my IT guy, well, what was the documentation they gave you? Well, they just told me. Okay, well, there begins the loop. So we know, David, what do you think the biggest problem they had when they had to come back and say, our bad, this has been going on for a lot longer than we thought? What were they missing?
I'd say it's risk analysis they're missing.
Yeah, it's like the number one thing
Yeah.
that people don't do correctly. And, you know, I'm constantly paranoid that we're missing them as much as we try to do to find them all. I'm paranoid we're missing them. Now, at least we're trying to find them. And once they are discovered, say, I don't know, with an attack on the server, then you do something about it. Well, that didn't happen. Somebody somewhere did nothing when they should have done something.
Yeah. I mean, again, to your point, if somebody says, oh, there's no PHI there, prove it. Because there might not have been PHI there 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago when somebody looked at it, but it very well could be today.
You got to prove it.
Every time.
So we got our obligatory press release quote from our new OCR director, Lisa Pino. And you want to cover the quote, David? Because nailing it.
Yes. She says, HIPAA covered entities are vulnerable to cyber attacks if they fail to understand where EPHI is stored in their information systems. Effective cybersecurity starts with an accurate and thorough risk analysis and implementing all the security rule requirements End quote.
There
You know,
go.
I noticed something there, though. She didn't say only the required security rule requirements
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or only the addressable security rule requirements.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She said all
Mm-hmm.
of these security rule requirements. Just saying,
Yeah.
all means all.
Mm-hmm. So, in that $875,000 deal, big enough, and you see your quote robust 2-year cap. Used to seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
Go to read it. All the stuff we're used to seeing. The expanded definition of a risk analysis now. That's huge. I remember when we first saw it, where it started including all the things that used to in the beginning. It would say you have to do a risk analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And now they'll say you have to make sure you include your workstations, your servers, your devices, they a little bit more definition of what they're expecting to see.
Right.
That was used to seeing that now. But then, and I don't know if this is the second time or the third time we've seen this. Can't recall. It's not the first, but it's certainly not something we're used to seeing. Is a section that says monitoring on the cap. Now, at first I'm thinking, okay, installing monitoring tools. No. Within 60 days of the effective date of the cap, they have to designate an individual or an entity to be a monitor, an independent monitor of OSU's compliance with this cap. And the monitor must certify in writing that it has expertise in compliance with the security rule, is able to perform the reviews described below in a professionally independent fashion, taking into account any other business relationships or other engagements that may exist. Meaning, don't get somebody that's already telling you fine. And they have to, within that 60-day period, submit the information with the name, the qualifications, all of those things. And then HHS has to approve of this individual or this company. And then that is not something we've been seeing, but what it's saying is, you know what? OCR is not going to be able to look over your shoulder. We know that. That's why we ask for regular reports. But now we're going to have you pay for somebody to do this. And they must retain every kind of document created for this program, including draft reports sent between the two of you.
Wow.
Yep. And, this happens. We send our assessments and we'll say, here's our draft. If we missed something, or there's information you have, but we use different language asking about, now's the time to tell us. Because we will take that into consideration and potentially update our draft. But you don't get to say, would you say this a different way? Could you change the date on that? Those kind of things. And so, even when we're doing, big group documents with multiple people and there's so many red lines happening, but it's all about, don't we need to include this? How do we state what really happened? That's too many words. No one understands what you're saying, but it's those kinds of things. But the fact that you have to keep all the drafts between you, that rang a bell for me. Made me pay attention.
And retain them for
6 years.
Yeah, the magic number.
And these reviews that the monitor has to do must address and analyze the compliance with the cap and assist in conducting assessments to make sure that you're compliant with the requirements of the cap. So basically, what it's saying is the stuff we normally do with our clients, they got to pay somebody to do. Because that's kind of work we do. We're there, to help do the assessments and stuff, but we're also there to answer questions and kind of we're there to help you stay on track and informed and all that kind of stuff. So here's the big difference, though. What we do our thing, but this requires quarterly reports be submitted to HHS about how you doing your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And any significant violations of the cap must be reported immediately by the monitor to HHS. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to turn you into the principal.
That's exactly what it's saying.
Yeah. And if OSU decides they don't like that person, it could be a personality thing. It could be, we don't like the rules you set, but you can't fire them without submitting notice to HHS and explaining why you want to terminate that prior to the termination. Let's see, quote, prior to the termination, unless exigent circumstances require immediate termination. So you better have exigent circumstances if you don't get approval to get rid of this person. And then within 30 days of the termination, you better have HHS approve somebody that's replacing them. Ow. And by the way, everybody that thinks you want to be a monitor, because you know what happens, David, everybody's going to start running and saying, oh, I'm a cap monitor or whatever. They're going to come up with some.
I'm a certified cap monitor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am certified by myself. You need to keep in mind that they included this validation review in the event HHS has reason to believe that A, the monitor reviews or reports fail to conform to the requirements of this cap, or B, the monitor report results are inaccurate. HHS may at its sole discretion conduct its own review to determine whether the monitor reviews and reports complied with the requirements of the cap and or are inaccurate. So they're going to be looking over your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So just, don't think the monitor is going to cover you. You're going to be able to talk them into something because they're making sure that everybody's got a dog in this fight.
Yeah, and if the monitor doesn't do it right, I'm sure they make it on some kind of list so the OCR doesn't approve them next time.
Uh-huh. So it's not some game to get in there and play. And these reports by the third party don't negate the requirement for all the reports we normally see where the owner, business owner, leadership has to attest that they have reviewed it and they are sure that it is good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it.
Fun times.
Yeah, I mean that one. It gave me it gave me some things to pay attention to. And we're gonna have some of that in the boot camp. I can assure you there are things in that corrective action plan that'll be in the boot camp. Some things that we've seen in some of the recent OCR requests for information during these investigations in the boot camp, because the times they are a changing, David.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that,
true.
Let's hit the mic drop.
Oh yeah, 11 mic drops.
Bam, 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 bam. They did them all together trying to get attention, because it's not like they signed them all in one day, but they wanted to get everybody to pay attention.
Yeah, this is one of those you better read between the line things.
If not, it's not. You're not reasonably anticipating the threats to your ability to.
I mean, the whole thing falls back on what the OCR director said, which is it should not take a federal investigation for a HIPAA-covered entity provides patients or their personal representatives with access to their medical records.
Yep.
I mean, it's
pretty straightforward.
The only thing that could have been better is if it had said it shouldn't take an act of Congress.
I know.
But a federal investigation. It's nuts.
Yeah. OCR is serious about upholding the law and people's fundamental right to timely access to their medical records.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing, though, is we're going to find out is that, we talked before about some of these where it's years sometimes between the ask and the deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of these are not years. They're just barely beyond.
Yeah. So they're paying attention, folks. This is not something that is going away. In fact, it's I don't know. Would you say intensifying, David?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're making a point to say, look, you better get this right.
Yeah. So let's learn from their mistakes on what they're doing wrong to be featured in the mic drop of 11 all at once. Now, the first one is a civil money penalty. And apparently these people think that they don't answer to anybody based on the way things were worded. We don't have to respond to anything about anybody for any reason. You are not the boss of me. I don't care who you are.
There are probably people who did not even realize what OCR was. They do.
Well, but they definitely did not pay attention to what the law requires. I'll tell you that. Because patient asked for their records, they started asking, like verbally in September of 2018. And had to keep asking, and then they learned they had to do it in paperwork. In November 2018, they filed the paperwork.
All right.
And so because insurance is denying them, and they need paperwork to be able to challenge insurance, and they got to pass it on to the people that help them. These things happen all the time. So they didn't get the records. On 12/18, according to the patient who filed the complaint, they were told, we have your request, and we are, quote, too busy at year end to get what you need. It'll have to be in January. Then in January of 2019, the doctor says, and here's where the wheels fell off. Until insurance pays the bill, we're not going to give you any records. And insurance has not. Okay, but I'm trying to get the records so that I can get insurance to pay the bill. And the doctor's like, I'm not giving you the records until insurance pays the bill. That's a loop that is not right. You can't make the patient pay a balance or make sure any balance is paid other than the reasonable cost to acquire your records. That's the only thing that you can require them to pay, and it better be a reasonable cost-based fee. So apparently, whoever the patient was didn't realize and eventually learned how to file a complaint in April. So on April the 8th, they filed a complaint with OCR, who tells them, OCR says to ACMP Podiatry in Peoria, Illinois, which, note to self, I wouldn't go see based on this, because the very next thing is on 4/8, files a complaint, OCR notifies them, hey, give the patient the records, here's what the law says. So even if you could claim you didn't know, which the affirmative offense is gone, it used to be there, but it's gone now. At that point, it's clear. You need to give the patient the records.
Mm-hmm.
They notified the patient. So everybody knows. April 24th, patient still hasn't gotten the records, calls the office, and they are told, and I took this quote, we still have your request and we have your number.
Don't call us. We'll call you.
What? Ow.
Yeah. Just.
We're mad because you told the principal. That's what it is. So then in May, for obvious reasons, the patient filed another complaint, told OCR, hey, still not getting my stuff.
Yeah.
OCR then tries to do an investigation. These people never respond other than to say, yeah, we got the letter. Ever. Nothing. So they have never, to this, as of the date of when, never responded. Ever. But
just
finally,
they'll go away.
No. Finally, July 23rd, 2020, 618 days later, They gave up and gave the patient their records.
Yeah, I would never go to a doctor's office like that.
Near. But $100,000, and now they're going to go after him for the $100,000 because they had the opportunity to. They gave him an opportunity to discuss it. No reply. They gave him an opportunity. Here's what we're going to do. And then final determination. They get a letter. Hey, you're doing nothing. So stroke a check. So it'll be interesting to see how that one turns out, if we ever learn.
Yeah.
So
that's an example of one that took a long time. 618 days.
Yes.
All right. So, but what does it look like when you don't take that long? It's just a few months.
Yeah. So Associated Retina Specialists in New York. Patient filed a complaint on February 18th, 2021. OCR notified them of the investigation, and 3 days later, the patient got their records. Now, granted, it was 5 months after the initial ask, but the patient got their records.
Yeah. So lit them on fire, and it worked.
Right. And so they took the opportunity because clearly they did not meet their obligation of 30 days, no later than 60 with a special bonus. But they took them up on the 1-year corrective action plan and paid $22,500. Yeah. So that took 5 months for the patient to get the records. Next one, dentist office. For all of you who dentist, it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
This is
HIPAA.
a Baltimore dentist, Lawrence Bell Jr., DDS. HIPAA schmippa. October 2015, the complaint, they requested their records. They filed a complaint.
Let's go back. I think you said October 2015.
Oh, October 15th, 2019.
There you go. Because if we didn't correct that, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it took years.
I know, right? So 2019, October, the patient files a complaint because they had requested records in July 2019 and had not gotten them.
Yep.
So the dentist signs off on this corrective action plan and a $5,000 settlement. And part of the cap is they have 15 days to get the patient their records. So the patient clearly has still not had the records they asked for in July 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have one where the patient asked for the records in December 2020 and then again in January 2021. And then they file a complaint in January and again in April. They finally got their records in May of 2021 from Coastal ENT in Ormond Beach, Florida, who is also on a corrective action plan and paying $20,000.
Woo.
And some of these, they didn't take any, here's the dates. They screwed up.
And this patient now, I mean, there's some assumption going on here, but like they filed a complaint almost when they should have.
Yeah.
So it's like they knew, look, you've got 30 days. I know this. And if you don't, you don't deliver, I am filing a complaint. And see, we've talked about this a number of times over the years, at least 366 times. We mentioned that at some point, your patients are going to know what you should be doing and they're going to hold you accountable. And I think this is one of those times.
Oh, I totally agree because it's clear. The patient asked for the records on the 15th. They asked for them again on the 8th of the next month. They filed the complaint, 20 days later? Didn't get their records. They filed another complaint in 3 months. And boy, they got their records then. And that $20,000 1-year corrective action plan hopefully will mean that other patients at Coastal ENT will not suffer these kind of problems.
And see, I don't understand why these people like Coastal ENT pay me $20,000 and I'll make sure this never happens. And you won't make it on the show.
There you go. Now, here's another one. This is Danbury Psychiatric in Massachusetts. It's very small. Theirs is $3,500, but it's the same kind of scenario. The request for the records was on March 24, 2020. They were not provided because the patient had an outstanding balance and they required them to sign a request or authorization request that was a specific, and it had to be signed. So they're like, no. They filed a complaint 3 days later.
Somebody knew what was up.
Yeah. And finally got the records in September of 2020. So again, patients know now. And that was we know what was happening in March 2020.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. The Erie County Medical Center in Buffalo, New York, $50,000. The complaint was filed. The records provided eventually. I mean, they're not going in any story. Erie's like, yeah, we're our bad. Here, stroke a check. Go on the plan. I don't know. But they were hit with ransomware attacks every year. So, this is probably in a long list of things they're working on. Then we have Fallbrook Family Health in Nebraska. As you know, these things are all over the place. Hello. They're not large. It's small ones.
I was actually shocked none of them were in Georgia.
I know, right? None of them are in the Southeast. Well, Florida. Florida got one. Okay, never mind. Anyway, so this one is another one everyone should pay attention to. Patient made 3 written requests and then filed a complaint. They finally got their records in June of 2020. But here's the reason they gave for not giving the patient the records in a timely manner on their 3 requests. It's because a workforce member misunderstood the right of access.
Well, if a workforce member misunderstood it, then whose fault is that?
Yeah. And the affirmative defense doesn't count anymore. And sorry about the person that was thrown under the bus. They tried to throw somebody under the bus. That's exactly what that phrase is all about.
Yep.
So, no, you don't get to say that. So $30,000 and a corrective action plan so that they'll make sure that all workforce members understand the right of access. I feel certain about that.
I bet you they were not training more often than once every 4 months.
Once a year, net, and never evaluated the right of access. We both
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Then we have Hillcrest Nursing and Rehab in Massachusetts. March of 2020, a mother requested her son's records as his personal representative, filed a complaint in July, and then finally got the records in October.
Yeah, this just goes to show, we got a few more here, but this didn't get put on hold because of COVID.
No. So the next one is Melrose Wakefield in Massachusetts, $55,000 in June. Though this one must have made people mad. And this is another mistake not to make. In June 2020, there was a request by the personal representative, the daughter, for her mother's records. It was denied because they said the durable power of attorney wasn't enough for them to provide access. Filed a complaint in July. Records were provided by October. And then $55,000 and a corrective action plan. You need to understand personal representatives, and there are very specific rules. We spend a lot of time working with folks to understand how to make decisions about personal representatives and their ability to get information. And if the mother was susceptible, they were already using a durable power of attorney, you know that she was having to care for her mother, and that shouldn't happen. Okay. Memorial Hermann, Southeast Texas Health System. Patient made 5 requests for their records between June of 2019 and January 2020. 5. So they did not know to file the complaint. until August of 2020, when somebody like us may have accidentally told them.
They were sitting at a bar telling the story, and somebody was like, wait a minute, you can file a complaint on that, right?
Yeah. Well, and there are cases on Quora where I've had to tell people how to file a complaint. They would say, I've done all these. Well, you go and you file a complaint. I'm just saying I've done it.
But even after the complaint is filed.
Yep. In August of 2020, patient didn't get the records until March of 2021. $240,000 and a corrective action plan by Memorial Hermann in Southeast Texas, the health system. And then our last one, another one in Texas, in Houston. I'm sorry, I live in Georgia. Houston, Texas. Houston County. Says it right. It's house. Anyway, that's another conversation David and I already had. Southwest Surgical. So surgeons, they will be paying $65,000 and going on a corrective action plan. The complaint was filed in December 2020. So there were a few things going on that the patient hadn't gotten their records. OCR sent a notification in February of 2021, and in less than 30 days from that notice of you're being investigated, the patient got their records.
Well, they did it within 30 days, so that's good.
I know, but apparently not good enough.
It's the wrong 30 days.
That's right. Again, it should not take a investigation by the federal government to get their representatives' records.
Yeah, I don't think it says you must provide the records within 30 days of a complaint. Yeah. I think it's 30 days of a request.
Yeah, 30 days of being notified you're under investigation.
Yeah.
Oops. So that's it. The total right of access cases are now up to 38.
Wow.
They have more cases on this than they have. I mean, total number of cases is only like through the end of last year, it was like 85 total ever. So now we've added 2, 11, so 13 more, almost doubled it in 2022. So please make sure that you are paying attention. The total amount levied one way or another is like over $2.2 million, but the median amount, and you can't say average because there's so many variables in there. So I just did the median, and for the math nerds, you get that. And for those that know this is not an average and ask somebody what a median is, it's $44,000 per case with an annual corrective action plan.
Yeah. And as we said before, the corrective action plan is going to cost you money.
Yeah. These aren't as bad. They don't require a monitor. I didn't go through all of them because they're kind of, you have to make sure you're doing this right. But now I'm going to have to do it on a time frame. I'm going to have to document stuff. I'm going to have to file reports. I'm going to have to do all this other stuff. So I've done multiple webinars for years trying to tell people what you need to do to make sure you don't end up in this list.
Yep. So
there you go.
For just a few $1,000s a year, Cardin can help you avoid being on this list. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks for listening. And be sure to go back to your office and say, has anybody requested records lately?
I know. Has anybody looked? Is anybody complaining? Are we doing it in 30 days?
Yeah. 30 days. 30 days.
Yeah. And know that there's proposals to take that down to 15.
Yeah. You think 30 days is rough. Yeah, they talking about cutting it down in half.
I tell everybody to make your plans be 15 and 30 unless there's a reason you just can't. That's what your plan should be, is get it to them in 15, max of 30, period.
Yep. Without undue delay. All right, folks. Yeah, be sure to share this podcast out. We definitely appreciate it. And remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. the show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.